Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another edition of Hilaal Live. Thanks for joining us on Channel 347. I'm your host, Luqman Shadrack. Now, today we're discussing a very important issue, or I would say a condition that most of us in our communities often find the word autism come up quite often. Now, autism is a lifelong development disability. It affects the way people see the world and respond to stimuli, for example, sound, light, touch, space, and smell as well, and even taste. Now, autism is also known as a social communication disorder and affects four major areas of development. To tell us more in studio is the social work coordinator for the Western Cape, Ziyanda, Runu. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. It's such a topic that we often hear the word, we often see campaigns go around autism, but very little awareness in our communities is created, but that's where you guys come in as well. So for those that don't know too much about what autism is and how it affects individuals and even sometimes their families, would you like to tell us a bit more?
So, okay, I loved how you explained autism. You just gave us a whole school on what autism is.
Brilliant.
So, autism is a neurodevelopmental condition. It's characterized in the DSM-5.
Okay.
As you've mentioned, it affects four areas of difficulty, which is your language and communication, behavior and thinking, social interaction, and your sensory processing.
Okay.
So we're faced with a lot of challenges because it's not a new condition, but people are starting to branch out to these different conditions and they were starting to name them by their names. And now we are starting to understand what each condition affects and how each condition is shown.
Right.
So that is why awareness is very important. So the difficulties when it comes to autism, it's people not understanding what the condition is, because we've grouped people with neuro difficulties in a bunch, but now we're starting to branch that out.
Okay, all right. Thanks for sharing that. Also, in the same breath, we often hear of some misconceptions when it comes to autism. Is there any that you would like to share with us?
Yes. So as you've mentioned, that it's a lifelong condition. There is no cure for autism. You can't take the child anywhere where they'll say they'll cure the child. If the child has been diagnosed, or an individual has been diagnosed with autism, it's a lifelong condition. But there are support systems that can help the child adapt, that can help the child live a quality life.
You know, it's obviously a lot of understanding, a lot of patience, a lot of work support needs to be done as well. Because do you find that in our communities that more and more support needs to be given, and people are more or maybe coming to understand it a bit better?
Yes, I find that people are coming to understand it better because now a lot of people are going out for diagnosis. I mean, we come from 10 to 15 referrals a week pre-COVID, but now we get like 40 referrals, which means there is a lot of prevalence. People are going out there to get these diagnoses rather than sitting back at home and saying that the child will change or it'll be fine. People are actually reaching out for help.
Right. Now, how can we promote acceptance? Because therein lies the social issue that comes in as well, and inclusion maybe of autistic individuals, especially in our communities.
So basically, I think we need to push education first. No one can understand something that they don't know of. So instead of people in the community shying away, staying at home and not going out with our children in public, go out in public with our children so that you get to teach the next person what is the condition that your child has, so that they're able to go out there and learn about it and research. Because, I mean, if you don't have education on something, you can't understand it. It's difficult to understand it. And if we want our individuals to be understood, we should be willing to educate other people about the condition.
I agree with that. Do you find that people invariably try to hide their children or individuals away from society?
sometimes it's not because they want to, but because they are afraid of going out there and the behaviors that the child might have outside with other people. They're afraid of the judgment that might come from other people. They're also afraid of continuously explaining their children in society and in public. But I think I've once said to my parents that if you explain to a person, you're giving your child an opportunity to be understood rather than shying away from giving the next person education on what is the condition that your child has.
That's a very valid point as well. We're going to give out some details a bit later of how people can get hold of you should they need assistance as well. So if you look at the support and the resources that especially a organization like Autism Western Cape provides, what support services are available for autistic individuals, and I think the ripple effect and the support for the families, especially in the Western Cape?
So basically, Autism Western Cape is an NPO. What we do is we have two departments, which is the social work department and the training department. The social work department is responsible for providing post-diagnosis counseling for the parents and the family after the child or the individual has been diagnosed with autism, psychoeducational support, which is educating the parent and the family on what autism is, and ongoing support where we continuously provide support for the family because the child grows, the child prohibits different behaviors as they grow. So we provide that ongoing support that you can contact us and see us if you have difficulties or you're trying to understand something that is becoming new with you within your household and with your child.
Right. So with the condition of an autistic individual, going into mainstream community society obviously is a challenge. Are there specialized schools, environments available?
Yes,
for people to
Yes, there
to
are
live?
special needs schools. So what happens after the child has been diagnosed, when they get to 5 years old, the doctor processes an application to the Western Cape Education Department, which places the child at a school for special needs. But that does not guarantee placement, as there has to be a 2-week observation and an interview so that they can see if the child is a suitable candidate for the school. Then if not, they refer to a school that will be best suitable to suit the child's needs.
Okay. That process obviously is such a delicate process and must be handled very carefully.
Yes.
I can imagine. How can parents and caregivers access these resources, and maybe chat to us about some of the challenges that parents and caregivers actually face?
So a lot of parents and caregivers face challenges with getting schools for their children because we have very few special needs schools, and we have a very huge database for putting children into school. So those are the challenges that parents faced, and sometimes the challenges include a child that can understand the CAPS curriculum and be placed on mainstream, but because of other difficulties within the autism spectrum, they struggle within that mainstream. So those are part of other challenges that the parents receive. So we compile sometimes our resource list, our services and resource list, which consists of other organizations that provide services that could assist our autistic individuals. You're welcome to contact us and receive that list. So if you need a neurodevelopmental doctor, if you need a speech therapist, an occupational therapist, if you need activities, everything is there. It's just to make it easy for the parent to access resources that they might need for their child who's on the autism spectrum.
Right. Are we self-supportive in South Africa? Do we need assistance from abroad with regards to autism and the knowledge and the assistance that an autistic individual needs?
I think we do to some extent, but I also think we can make with what we have. We can make with what we have, because sometimes looking at things that other people are doing outside the country, which is more advanced, more resourced, might frustrate the parents because they might think that they're unable to do these kind of things, while they can utilize the resources around the house to make do with what they can. So even though we can look at that, but we should try away to say that oh, they're using these booklets to teach these children. They're using resources that look like this, that are so expensive. But why can't I use resources that I have within the household to help my child learn certain skills?
With the diverse language barrier that we have in South Africa, is they readily available for various languages to be accommodated for autistic individuals in terms of the resource material?
Well, that is very difficult to some extent, because some individuals on the autism spectrum do communicate. Let me not say communicate, they do have the verbal sense, they can speak, and some don't. So language barrier sometimes becomes an issue where a child attends an English school and at home there's Xhosa. So now it also puts a barrier on the child to communicate, because they struggle with choosing a language between the two. I once had a client, just to make an example, I once had a client who started speaking at 14 years old. Not that they couldn't speak, but because of the language barriers that were around his surrounding. At school they spoke English, at home they spoke Afrikaans, but the area was Xhosa dominated. So he found it difficult to choose a language that he could speak in. But when he started living with his aunt, who normally speaks English all the time, he started speaking because he could find a common language within the three spaces that he is around.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ziyanda. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we chat a bit more to Ziyanda who's a social worker coordinator for Autism Western Cape. Stay tuned. We'll be back after the break. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Hilaal Live. Thanks for joining us on Channel 347. Remember, you can also download our apps on Google Play and iPhone as well. Today we're talking about autism, which is known as a social communication disorder and affects four major areas of development. In studio, we're joined by social worker coordinator for Autism Western Cape, Ziyanda Runu. Ziyanda, thanks so much once again. Really appreciate it for educating us. Speaking about education, and especially education and inclusion when it comes to understanding autism, how can we ensure that autistic children or individuals receive adequate support and accommodations, and like you were referring to, special schools, and in some cases normal schools, that mainstream schools that need to accommodate autistic individuals?
So we currently, our training department is responsible for training ECD centers, training speech therapists, everyone who forms part of the autism community. We also have our online platform, which goes for 2,699 Rand, excluding VAT. It consists of 16 modules. Anyone can take. It is CPD accredited by HPCSA and SACE. We're currently on our road to accredited for SACCSP, which is the Council for Social Workers. So we're trying to get everyone to be inclusive, to understand the condition. Schools, social workers, psychologists, speech therapists, and anyone else who is working with the autism community. So to get in contact with us to get our course, they can contact us at admin@awc.org.za. It is a very informative course. It is 16 modules. I mean, it speaks to autism from the beginning to the end, everything that you need to know.
Brilliant. Do you find, or have you been in a situation where, I would imagine that not every individual is born with a autistic challenge. Do you find that maybe halfway through their life or in the scholastic environment that they realize that a child is autistic? Or maybe people didn't pick it up before the time? Yes,
we have a lot of individuals who receive late diagnosis, because sometimes they are misdiagnosed for other conditions, and then later, because they learn of the condition and they understand the condition, they get diagnosed for autism. We've gotten a lot of cases that are like that, where you get an individual who's diagnosed at 23 with autism.
Sure. And I would imagine that, being given the help earlier in life would have assisted, tremendously, but at least somebody, picked it up at that stage as well. Being part of the Autism Western Cape organization or division, are there various campaigns that you do, or let's talk about past campaigns first. Tell us about some of the work you've done.
So every year, on the first Thursday of April, which is April Autism Awareness Month, we host our Artists on the Spectrum, which is a big event where our artists who are on the spectrum showcase their art and for people to buy it. So that we can show that they're very talented. There's a lot of things that they can do. So we're giving them a platform to show out there that there's more to autism.
Okay. When someone comes to you and you do the assessment prior to being placed in a school or providing assistance, take us through that process.
So basically, Autism Western Cape does not do the diagnosis because we are not equipped to do the diagnosis. So in most cases, it's the hospitals, the neurodevelopmental doctors who do the diagnosis. And then after they've diagnosed the child, we get the referrals that confirm that the individual is on the autism spectrum. So we based at Tygerberg Hospital. We're based at New Somerset Hospital. So after the diagnosis, we receive the referral. Then we provide post-diagnosis counseling for the individual. Then we provide psychoeducational support where we educate the parent and the family. And sometimes we refer the client to other organizations if there's other issues within the family that are unrelated to the individual being autistic, but affect the individual who is on the autism spectrum.
Right. Have you found that autism is genetic, or is there a specific way that's identified of how somebody becomes autistic?
We are still searching for that. Unfortunately, we do not have the direct cause of what autism, what causes autism. There's a lot of speculations around what causes autism, but we haven't pinpointed exactly, research hasn't pinpointed exactly what causes autism.
Brilliant. Have you got centers throughout South Africa where people can go to? You represent the Western Cape. Are there centers in the major cities?
There are a lot of different centers. There's also Autism South Africa, but they're not part of Autism Western Cape. They're their own NGO. Then we have for Western Cape, Autism Western Cape. So we work with the whole of Western Cape.
Wow.
Yes.
And that's quite a large area
yes, it's
as well.
Quite a large area. So, but sometimes we go out to do outreach services to the other places that are very far. For example, last year we went to George.
Nice.
We went to other locations. We even reached out to the Eastern Cape to provide training for parents who have children who are on the autism spectrum and educators that side.
Are there gaps in the system that still needs to be addressed from a social point and also from an organizational point?
Yes, funding. Funding gaps. We recently received a 50% cut of our funding for this year, which has resulted into staff shortages and delay in provision of services. So we'd like to get more funding. If you would like to sponsor or do anything for us, you can contact us. We've even got our backup buddy up online and a petition just to say that funding cuts must stop because they delay our needed services.
Right. So with this in mind, I would imagine that you would plan a few other events coming up to raise these funds. Are there any upcoming events you would like to mention?
Tomorrow we will be at Kenilworth. We'll be selling casual day stickers. The money that is raised there goes to persons with disabilities. So the casual day stickers are 20 Rand each. 9 Rand goes to Autism Western Cape and 11 Rand goes to the casual day people. So we would like so much support with that so that we can use that money to continue providing this service to our individuals.
What is your message to the general public? You work with autistic individuals on a daily basis. It must be so heartwarming sometimes, because I've come across one or two autistic people and they have such different set of skills that we don't possess, and often enough are, sort of pushed to one side and not given the respect that they deserve. What is your greater message?
My greater message, especially to the parents, look at your child's strengths, observe your child's strengths. instead of trying to teach them something that you have a strength in, try to find their own strengths so that you can embrace them. If you know what they're good at and you work on what they're good at, that will help the child and lessen the anxiety of thinking that I'm trying to do something that I can't.
Of course, of course.
And to the general public, learn about autism, support the parents, lend a helping hand. Instead of judging and instead of looking away, just try to lend a helping hand.
Okay. Any details, numbers, social media platforms that you would like to give out?
So you would reach us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Autism Western Cape. Our contact details, our number is 021-462-8232. And to send a referral or to send a query, a question or anything, you can send it on email on admin@awc.org.za.
Brilliant. So tomorrow you're going to be at Kenilworth Centre?
Yes, Kenilworth Centre in front of Spur, but we'll also be walking around. We'll be selling these tickets, but you can also access these tickets at Sanlam in Belleville. They have a table for us, a special table for us, helping us sell these tickets so that we can receive a more cash injection into the organization to continue providing this awesome service.
Social work coordinator for Autism Western Cape, Ziyanda Runu. It's been an absolute pleasure having you in studio. Thank you so much for all that you do in our communities, and may all your future projects grow from strength to strength.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And there we go. That's Autism Western Cape. They're going to be at Kenilworth Centre tomorrow. Do go out and support them. They do need much needed funds. From all of us in Cape Town, Sohail Barnes, Mohammed Parker, and myself, Lukman Shadrack, have a great evening. Assalamu alaikum.